From increasing poverty levels across the world, escalating impacts of climate change to political conflicts, the world is today confronted by crises across many fronts. Nevertheless, many believe that present challenges are not insurmountable and can be addressed by solutions that empower women. However, Nigeria, like most parts of the world, has continued to experience several gender-related difficulties, including unequal treatment of women in the corporate sector, low female representation in the legislature and other government positions. In the face of current socio-political challenges and gender gap, gender advocates believe that investing in women can spark changes and speed the transition towards a healthier, safer, and more equal world for all. How true is this assertion? Well, we are soon going to find out. On this episode of Late Edition, we shall be looking at the theme of this year's International Women's Day, Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. I am Ekene Ndulue. Thanks for joining us. And joining us on the program today is Dr. Plangsat Dayel. She has vast working experience in teaching, research, and consulting activities. She is currently the Director, Center for Gender and Women Studies, and a consultant, Gender Advisor Development Research and Public Center. She was also a member of the Federal Ministry of Transportation Road Transport Transformation Program, Gender Inclusion in Transport Work Stream, member, Northern Governors Forum, Northern Traditional Rulers Committee on Restructuring and Constitutional Amendments, Chairperson, Fiscal Federalism, Derivation and Revenue Allocation Subcommittee, member, Peace Women Partners, World Council of Leaders. She has won several grants and consultancies in the course of her duty. That's a mouthful, madam. Glad to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right. Looking at the World Women's Day for 2024, issues around gender gap, how important is it to address these issues? We are looking at investing in women. How important is it to invest in women?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I think the world has changed over time. You know, women are no longer just staying in one place. They want to be part of the productive sector and also to add to the development of the country. And so when you see a situation where close to half of the nation's population wants to add value to the economy, to the development and different sectors, it is very key and important to invest in them, to support their ventures, to ensure that we collectively contribute to the common good of our societies and of our family and in the different sectors we find ourselves. So the theme for this year investing in women, I think, is very key.
Okay.
And I think it's also very strategic because without the investment, every other thing we're talking about will just be at a standstill. So you need to put in place policies, you need to put in place processes, you need to even invest financially to ensure that those things you want to see happen. So I think that's very, very important.
Okay, during my opening, I mentioned like the advocates of gender, like they said that investing in women will solve probably a whole lot of some of the challenges that we are facing today. And I asked the question, how true is this assertion?
Let me use the Development Research and Project Center as an entry point to answer your question. You know, we have what we refer to as the Partnership for Advancing Women Economic Development. It's a project that was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. POWET started some 3-4 years back, 2020. So the model we operated is to ensure that we increase the salience of women in economic development. We encourage the salience also in them forming coalitions, supporting their activities, and then policies and programs at both national and subnational levels. So that project and that process is yielding a lot of fruits. And I'm sure as we progress in the interview, I'll give you more examples. But let me take you to one key example that would lead to the question you just asked. Now, we form what we call women's economic collectives in different states of the federations, which are referred to as WECs. In short, that's WECS, WECs. These women's economic collectives are a formation of women in different civil society organizations coming together to form these WECs. So what we do is to give them advocacy and communication training. So what do we make them do at both national and subnational level? We expose them to understanding what government says about women's economic empowerment. We draw their attentions to opportunities that exist within this space. And then we teach them how to track even investment in women at both national and subnational levels. We've seen cases where women within these works have been able to use those empowerment that we give them through advocacy and communication to hold government accountable, to say, okay, on so-so date, during so-so speech, you said you do A, B, C for women. We want to see how you intend to achieve that. No, that is empowerment. And then because of these processes of empowerment, these women have been able to ask government to live up to their expectations. We've had cases where they asked that, okay, you've said that you have fertilizer, for example, in one state, you have fertilizer, and then this is farming season. How many bags do you have? How many bags of these fertilizers are going to farmers? How many are going to women farmers? What is the process and channel for distribution of these fertilizers? So they do that because we gave them the tool. We gave them the power. So they are advocating, and we are seeing these changes. And I can tell you that these ministries and parastatals and departments are beginning to call these women to a discussion. When these fertilizers come, for example, in state aid, I'm giving you an example, they'll call these women and say, oh, we now have 20 trailers of fertilizer for the state, for all farmers. We are giving 3, 4, 5, 6 trailers to what? Women farmers, you know. And they do that, and I think that is very positive because it's encouraging them to do what they know how to do and without any form of hindrance. That's an investment in women.
This works. Where is it domiciled? Who is in control and in charge of this program?
The Development Research and Project Center.
Okay.
It's coordinating the works through the Partnership for Advancing Women's Economic Development. And it was funded by the Gates
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And they are in all the states of the federation?
Almost all. Let me use the word almost all. They are in almost all. We have to date about 150-something works in different locations of the country.
Okay.
And then they are being coordinated by the hub. Here they have a national coordinator that works with them, and we do these trainings and sensitizations continuously It's not a one-off thing where you just train them today in advocacy and communication, because you need them to be on top of the game.
It has to be a continuous
yes,
process.
Yes, because even the budgetary provisions are reviewed all the times, and each year you can see new things and new lines of allocations are coming up. So women need to
and
be
those
empowered.
that are not relevant removed.
Not necessarily so. You see,
no, that's one thing with reforms. Those that are no longer relevant will be put aside, and new things will come in.
You teach the women how to look at investment in women in these budgets.
Okay.
Now, so to have a holistic look, so they pick them. I give you, for example, what we discovered in our 2020 budget analysis. Across MDAs, we had about 25 point something billion investment for women's economic empowerment and other things across these MDAs. By the time we did the 2023 budget analysis, we discovered that these investments have grown from 25 billion to about 125 point something billion. That's a significant increase in terms of investment. So we're able to open the eyes of these women to see how monies are coming in for their own development and growth and for empowerment. And then because they know that there's a budgetary allocation, they can easily monitor and ask questions. Where are these monies going to? And so, of course, advocacy helps, and it can help to resolve.
But looking at the theme of this year's International Women's Day, it actually shows that there is still a lot of gap. The gender gap is still there, you know. So after years of preaching closing the gap, gender equality, women empowerment, why are we still experiencing all these?
I can tell you, DRPC has tried. We are working in that space. We can tell you that if you go and look at our library, we have produced hundreds of knowledge materials.
No, the thing, I don't want to make this about you, about the DRPC.
I'm going to get back to that.
Okay.
Knowledge materials related to women's economic empowerment. But it's a big space. So we need a hub that coordinates investments in this kind of space from other civil society organizations. Because by the time you do that, you'll be able to see the extent to which you're getting that. If you have a country with a population of about over 200 million, and we're saying that women constitute 100, that's about
half of the population are women. Yes. And
then we are working within a space. You know that there's definitely need for more. And Nigeria's population, it's increasing, not actually decreasing.
It's
so
a growing
lot
population.
of pressure, even on government expenditure, even on investment, and even the existing infrastructure. You can see the pressure on it. And so we need more to be done within that space. But a lot is being done, I can tell you. But then more needs to be done because the population is growing. There are new challenges. There are even new frontiers to conquer. So it's a space that I think needs, we can't finish it all.
Yes.
More challenges.
And that's why I want to expand the scope of our discussion from your organization. We are taking a holistic look at the issues surrounding gender gap in Nigeria. I know till today we still have issues of religion, customary practices and all that. You know, but we are trying to provide a solution to all these. What can be done to bridge this gap actually?
You see, let me take you to what we call norms. You see, these norms and these social norms are derived from the practices within this, whether it is from the religious institutions, traditional institutions, from the value within the families that are changing, whether it is in the school systems and the curriculum, etc. These entire systems of social norms and what guides our values, those things have also been shifting and they are changing. You see, in the past, what was the practice? The practice was that you would be told at home, know the child of who you are, isn't it? So when you go out, you try to do things that stick to that. As young people, you're told to work hard. So there's this value to work hard. everybody worked hard. And I can remember from the village I grew, women didn't stay at home. They went to the farms. Even if they are not holding the hoes, they are trying to plant the seeds as these young men and family members are tilling the grounds. So everybody had something to add and bring value within the same system. But over time, these norms and values are beginning to what? Change. So for us to achieve something reasonable, we need to revisit these values that are influencing the kind of what social norms we're having within the what system, okay, to ensure that investments are not just targeted at one segment of the society, but that investments are what holistic, whether it is in our religion or whether it is within our families, etc. That we're giving space to both men and women to achieve their what potentials. That even the curriculum we're using in schools, that are beginning to change. It will shock you to go to bookshops now to pick books, and you would still see that the teaching aids, the materials and examples are gendered. Okay. You're still seeing
Teacher Chike.
You're still seeing the woman in the kitchen
and the man in the classroom.
The boys are playing ball, and the girls are holding these baby female toys, yes, and playing with. These are this kind of socialization spaces that are also affecting, because what we do within these spaces, before you notice, is being shifted to informal institutions, and it is being normalized as what is expected. So when people discriminate and don't give space for inclusion, truly sometimes they are not doing it because they are coming from a point of hate, or they are trying to, but because they've been socialized through this process to assume that this space is for men and this space is for women. So when you're trying to say no, we need to ensure that everybody comes in because society benefits when everybody is empowered, it becomes difficult to what? Shift this mindset, okay, and these norms and this culture. So there's a lot I can tell you within this space.
You know why I brought up this issue when you were talking about works. Yeah, you talked about so many women now getting empowered, yeah, you know, to invest and all that. But looking at the political space, it seems the gap is actually widening. You know, looking at 2023 election, we saw a drastic reduction in the number of women representation in the National Assembly. It's all-time low from 2003. This 2023 election, we had like 17 female representatives at the National Assembly, both at the Senate and House of Reps. And in 2023, in 2003, actually, I think it was about 24. And 2015 we had 29, so going down now to 17. The gap, would you say the gap is widening actually?
You see, the statistics you just gave is clear that there's a reduction, sadly speaking. We're supposed to be growing, because if you look at 1999 to date, there have been so many policies put in place to address inequalities within these spaces. Policies about, we have a national gender policy. Yes. INEC has an INEC gender policy. Political parties in their manifestos and even constitutions, they have provisions to ensure that they bring in more women and young people and persons with disabilities. But if you look at the provisions within these documents and then you look at the statistics, there's no correlation between them. It shows that more needs to be done. It's not about the documentation, but about the implementation. I mean, people should be held accountable to live. Yeah,
I was actually going to talk about that, because the gender gap we are seeing today is not because of lack of policies. Yes. The national gender policy is already there, talking about 35% affirmative action and all that. So where is the issue?
The norms, the belief, the values. People still believe that, surprisingly, politics is for men and for people who have had. Should someone ask me yesterday that when I said we need to support more women to get there, they said, nobody is preventing them from getting there. I said, you know that there are subtle discriminations that happens. You don't need to hold a gun to tell somebody you want to shoot them.
Okay.
And create the fear in them. There are so many other ways you do around these women to tell them that, you cannot be there. Women have reported being threatened. There's an example of a woman that was kidnapped in my own state on the day of the primaries of her political party. She was released immediately after
the primaries.
Which
means it was political.
That's the assumption if you look at it give and take. You know, it shows that this woman, she was allowed to do everything she contested.
But the issue is that men also face these problems.
Yes.
There are some male candidates that have also passed through these same issues of kidnap and thuggery and all that.
Yes, men face the same thing, but women face multiple of those barriers. You know, if you look at when it comes to issues, for example, you have more godfathers than you're having godmothers. You know, so the godfathers might want to have more godsons. And because we don't have godmothers who will invest in women more, they have to work with these men to get what they want. And sometimes conditionality is being given before you are being adopted politically. Some of them don't sit well with some of the norms, beliefs, and the value system. You look at also the cost of running politics. Because even if you give women the forms free, running these politics, running campaigns, etc., is expensive. You take, for example, if you need 20 or 30 vehicles to go to a particular community to contest, you need to fuel these vehicles. You need to feed people. You need to do many other things. So if you give me forms free and then I need to do all these things, we need to find a way of ensuring that politics is done without really too much finances. But then it's about what values, it's about what people are putting on the table. So a lot of orientation needs to come from the community to know that, yes, we are not voting for candidates who have the money, but we're voting for people who will represent us and add what? Value. Within the political systems also, before candidates are screened and put forward, oftentimes there's a lot of politicking going on. And you notice that caucuses are formed, and before you notice that some people are being screened out of the space. And oftentimes women are more disfavored in that kind of space.
Okay.
Within these political parties, they hold on to this power and they wouldn't want to let go. So before you gain entry into this space, you need to really work hard. And that's why we've advised and encouraged women to start this thing quite early, to go to right from the ward level, be interested in what's happening at the local level, grow into the process, pay attention, recruit people as they are recruiting, like when you need youths around you who will help you do the campaign and do the talking and do the convincing. Do all these things so that when you're progressing and going up, you're not looking for people who will just be handing over to you, but you are also adding what?
You are part of the process.
Yes. I believe that when we have more women within the political space, there will be a lot of sanity. I
was actually coming to that aspect because so many people have been saying that, but looking at what we've seen over the period of years in Nigeria's politics, do you actually believe in that women will bring in sanity to the system?
Yes, I believe. You see, if you look at the kind of value, like I started from talking about the
but remember, we've also caught some other women with their hands in the cookie jars as well. So
there are, and I'll take you back to statistics. I'm happy you gave us the number of women who started from 1999 and how it is going down. If you put this thing on a table, I'm not exonerating or giving anybody blames.
Yeah.
You put it on the table and say, okay, in 2001, and the statistics are there actually. These are the financial crimes.
Okay. Probably men. Because you have more men.
That's why I said I'm not trying to excuse for anybody.
Okay.
But women are part of the socialization process.
Yeah.
That happens within our community and also within politics. What happens is that you also have some bad eggs who will go in there and then do the wrong thing. But then you have very good ones several of them. And that's why you see them right from the state level. If they are given opportunity, they are doing very well. But to ascend to the top, something prevents them, because they are not able to pull the strings, and then the policies we have in place are not being implemented. A lady gave an example when she was commissioner in her state, and I wouldn't mention her name, and I think that's commendable. She woke up in the morning and had no 1 naira in her account. As a matter of fact, she had to borrow recharge card from the network. As she reached her office, she was given 30 million naira cash. Cash. You know, all she needed to do was to sign some papers, and then that is hers.
Okay.
Looking at the fact that she woke up without a dime in her account, she had to borrow a recharge card, and here is 30 million cash. She told them she can't do this. You know, she left without it. And the next thing that happens is that when she left, the same set of people who brought the money were saying, why can't we just take this woman out of this place? Because it's like she's not going to allow water to flow. That's the language. She's
refusing to play ball.
To play the ball. So what I'm trying to say is that women are part of this same socialization process. So you said women have been caught with their hands in the what?
No, I'm not trying to. I just want us to trash out that belief that when you have women, that there will be sanity.
Yes, there will be sanity. Though corruption has no gender. That's a fact.
Okay.
Everybody can be corrupt if they are socialized negatively. They have the tendency. But in terms of magnitude of resistance and who does more, etc., I think women from time immemorial have been at the forefront of promoting good values, of promoting anti-corruption activities. If you date back to the About Women riot, you know why the riot happened. Multiple taxations. Women couldn't trade freely in the markets. You know, people just come. And up to date, you're having such happening. Women want to do their businesses peacefully, but then people come with all forms of receipts. Some blue, purple, orange, collecting all forms of taxation to fit which process. The few money they are able to make to support their family, they carry them and give to these agencies who are collecting taxes, and the market infrastructure is not even improving. So there are instances, we have examples of women ensuring that they bring in accountability within the space. If you do a study of the kind of policies and bills that have been passed in the National Assembly and even in the state assemblies, you will know which kinds of policies are aimed at improving and bringing in things, and who, if you're going to do a sex disaggregation of these policies, you see clearly the kind of policies that men and women are making. And then it will be more revealing to tell you that, yes, women have the capacity to bring in more when they are given the opportunity. It's a shame that the bills women have tried to put in there have always been kicked out from there. It's not meant to hurt anybody. It's about saying, yeah, come, we need these people. I'm just imagining a society where we want to keep half of the population non-productive. Nobody benefits from that kind of system. But a system where everybody is productive, I'm telling you, imagine more than half of your population doing something, contributing to decision making.
That's a whole lot.
Doing business, yes, it will increase. That's why if you look at our GDP, even though some people analyze and tell you that the GDP is compared to other African countries, but if you look at the Human Development Index, we're not doing well. Because those key issues you're going to pick to analyze it, you'll notice that we're falling behind. Are you looking at women's empowerment? Are you looking at child mortality? Pick all these issues, you'll notice that we're not doing well in them because we're not paying attention to ensure that we're very inclusive, we're strategic in our approach to ensure we bring more women. But immediately you tell people you want to bring in more women, the first thing they think about is that they're taking part of the money, they're taking part of the power. Not looking at the value that people are adding to the system. Okay,
Doctor, we've actually gone a long way in the program. We'll take a break at this point. Late edition continues shortly. Stay with us. If you are just joining us, this is late edition on NTA News 24. We've been speaking on issues around gender equality, women empowerment, and the sorts. And Dr. Planksat here, before we went off on break, was trying to convince me that bringing in women in politics will bring a lot of sanity. And I think I believe in what she said earlier. Doc, so we've identified the problems. So how do we now begin? We know there is a global commitment to bridge the gender gap by 2030. Do you think enough is being done in this area? Nigeria is part of that global commitment under the SDG, so.
Yeah, I think Nigeria is trying, and then we can sustain the tempo, the momentum. But we need a lot in terms of monitoring ourselves at each stage. Because when we start to implement policies and programs, we need to also get back to the drawing board and say, hey, year one, we've done this, we've done that, but it seems as if we need to do more. If we don't take a pause to reflect and evaluate what our progress, it becomes very difficult to track where changes need to be made and where amendments need to be made. You take, for example, you have a national gender policy, which has a lot of provisions in terms of bringing in more women, etc., within the space. We've even done a review of the policy. There's a revised edition of the policy. What happens over the years when the first policy, when we started implementing? We need to see those statistics and say, oh, this is how far we've gone. This is how far we need to also go. We have, like I said, we don't lack policies when it comes to issues of gender equality, women's empowerment and inclusion. As a matter of fact, Nigeria has a monitoring and evaluation policy for women's economic empowerment. It shows that any money given for women's economic empowerment, there's an instrument where you can track and monitor where it goes and the kinds of results it is producing. 2030 looks very far, but it's as near as we can think of. We keep shifting the word. It's
just 6 years from now.
Yes, we keep shifting the goalposts. When we started with the Millennium
the MDG goals,
yes, we thought that by then we would have achieved everything we have put in place. That one wasn't possible, but progress was made. Now we have the SDGs, and we're nearing the goalposts. We're beginning to do a reflection. Where are we heading to from here? I think there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of advocacy and advocacy, not within the women themselves, but advocacy to policymakers. We are glad that we have he for she's
yes.
Within the legislator. We have them in the executive. We have them in the judiciary. We have people who are genuinely committed to ensuring that everybody is included and everybody is brought on board. But then we also have others that are lagging. And so these are the kind of people we need to work on to ensure that let's all be on the same page. That when you bring people to the same space, you're not trying to take over anybody's power. For example, I grew up in a home where my mom worked. She went to the farm. She added value. She's rearing animals. She does things. She does things in the household. So if you want to do certain things within the household, you don't need to go outside to look for support, or you wait for daddy to come back to do. Mommy is already solving it.
Home. Yes.
So it gives even less pressure on household income because it's coming from two sources.
Both parents, yes.
So if you look at what's happening in the economy now, the economy is so harsh that one hand, in terms of bringing in income for the household, wouldn't even sustain it. So you need everybody who can bring in income. The father needs to work, the mother needs to work to bring in something. And if we have to achieve what we are achieving and to track progress, we need to ask ourselves that when we started implementing these SDGs, what's the percentage in terms of increase? Let's do numbers. Then we also go to look at the quality. Who and who is affected and how. We need to do that. Before we even think of tracking progress in terms of getting anywhere. But I think we are not doing too well when it comes to our implementations. there's a lot that needs to be done. So we need advocacy in that area to ensure that people live up to their commitments, that what they promise to do, they are doing,
okay.
And that if you fail to do, there are consequences to not doing. Who is going to be held accountable? But you know, when policies are made and they operate in vacuums, it becomes very difficult to monitor progress and also hold people accountable.
So when you talk about the advocacy, how do you propose going about this?
What we do normally before advocacy is that we do a research, because when you want to advocate, for example, for maternal health, you have to get all the data related to what maternal health. You put those data in front, then you remind the policymakers of their commitments. So you see, they are seeing the data, they've made commitments, you remind them in one document, because it becomes very clear. You're using facts to tell them to what? Live up to their what? Expectation. You can subtly at the end of it tell them that we're going to come back to check. It's still advocacy.
Okay.
The progress of what's been done. So you don't just go for advocacy as a one-off thing. You tell them that this is the problem, this is how we want you to address it, where we want to be part of it, we want to support it, without coming back to say, oh, we want to see how far we've what? Gone. If progress has been made, you give commendations where commendations are needed. If you notice that there are still gaps, you draw attention to what? These gaps. But statistics don't lie. And they are a starting point for any kind of advocacy we want to do. So we encourage that people always do their research when they want to advocate, because people relate more when they see these statistics and they see this data, because they will know that, oh, this is where the problem is.
Okay, I'm talking about 35% affirmative action. Where would you place Nigeria currently?
I think this is very tricky. Except if we layer it, you know, when we layer it, then we might be able to assess it better. Politically, like in the political space, in terms of numbers of people being represented,
we are not there.
That one is low. Economically, like I told you from our assessment, there has been investment in we. So it means government make commitments and they are investing by budgeting for it. It is left for what? The tracking.
And I think on the economic angle, I think we are actually seeing it. Like when you go to the market, you see a lot of market women.
Beautiful.
You see a lot of women in the market running businesses. Some of them are keeping their homes even.
Beautiful.
So,
and you also see that for the first time you go to our shelves and you see made in Nigeria products packaged here, well packaged. And then, so there's progress there. But politically, if you layer it there, educationally, you know, it's an entire cocktail.
Yes.
Because what's happening in the political space, it's also affecting what's happening economically in terms of health and co. So, but when you single it out, it becomes very difficult to give a holistic assessment of the entire scenario and the process. Politically speaking, honestly, we need to go back to the drawing board. Something is wrong somewhere. We cannot progress and then now somersault. And then it is very normal. We've had campaigns and promises saying that when we come to office, we'll live up to expectations.
Yes.
We'll do this. We'll make sure we bring in 30%. And even beyond. From national and subnational levels, we are tracking and we are not seeing that commitment being lived up to. A few states are trying, I can tell you.
But when you come to voters, women voters, there is no problem with that. There are a lot of women that are eligible to vote. They have the numbers, even compared to the men. So when it comes to the holding political offices, where is the irony coming from? They have the number even to support a female, a fellow woman to attain that position. So why are women not backing their own? That is something to actually look at, because when you look at the numbers, INEC register and all that, you see that a lot of women are registered voters in Nigeria here. And if they decide to actually back a fellow woman, they can put that person in position.
You see, those who win offices are a product of what the political parties present and put in space. If you look at the last elections, it was already a gendered space when it comes to those who are contesting.
Who won the primaries.
Yes.
Oh.
It was already gendered. So there wasn't any choice as to, okay, this is what we are bringing. And I told you earlier that the men are still in control of these political parties. Women are still lagging behind. So even from the party primaries, you know, you notice that venues can be changed abruptly to favor certain candidates, and sometimes female are being, I don't know, they use a lot of threats to make sure that they don't get there. In terms of women not supporting women, I don't want to really agree with that, because you see, women are part of the entire socialization process within the society. I give you an example of a case where a woman was going to vote and the man had warned her from home and told her that if you dare not vote my candidate, you'll be in for it. So at that point she becomes a minor, because the decision she's going to take at that space is not yet hers. It depends on her what socialization process, because she has to go there and she's already trying to vote for what? A candidate she does. So it's not about women not supporting women. Women have been supporting women to mobilize. We do it a lot. Women invest with each other. We do it very well. Sure, nobody does investment when it comes to women investing. They invest in each other a lot. They support each other to invest. You've heard of all these Asusu and Co. These are village savings and loans that women put together. They do very well. So if you look at various layers, women work well with each other. But when it comes to holding that space, I told you it's about power. And those who hold the power don't want to relinquish, because they feel when you have women there, they are going to take over the privileges, because it's not about what the women are adding. All the privileges attached. So they do a lot of things to what? Ensure that they prevent the
women from getting there.
Yes, so I told you they threaten them, they do a lot of things. But otherwise, there are conditions that can make women get there. And women have been supporting. Okay, if you ask them to come for campaigns, they come out and they're supporting. It's just the women leader to say, please come out and vote, and they are coming out. They say, let's go for campaign, and they are what? Going. So, but when it comes to that one, because it is the end product, that space where you can control more, somebody sits there and wants to do the control and doesn't want more entry. We need to reorient people who hold public offices to know that this space can't be occupied just by what? Men alone. That women need to be in that space, because women have value to add within that space. So it's not about anybody taking over anybody's power. It's about bringing in value and ensuring that the community works together in harmony to resolve the issues around what? Development, around health, around the economy, around girl-child education, around early child marriage. Most of these problems can better be solved when you have more women making laws and ensuring they monitor these laws.
That brings us to the theme of the year's commemoration: invest in women, accelerate progress. If we are setting an agenda for the Nigerian government now on investing in women, what would it be? To start, let's begin to invest more in women. How do we start to make sure that we close that gap that has been existing over the years?
I think we need to ensure we bring in more women in that space, whether it's at the executive, judiciary, and legislature. Women need to be within the space. They should be on the table. It's not about we make the policies and hand it over for people to implement. We need to bring in more women. So part of what government can do in terms of its commitment to governance is that they should ensure that they bridge the gap. Politics is over, so we're not electing more women. It's unfortunate that the results didn't come out the way we want, but we can do more by appointing what? More women.
When I talk about investing
space.
in women, I'm not limiting it to the political space. I'm talking about maybe investing from the girl child up to make sure that we systematically close this gap. If we are trying to, although we have a lot of policies, the national gender policies already there, but if we are being deliberate, what should be done, you know, to tackle this challenge that we are addressing today?
You know, we've already identified implementation challenges.
Yes.
You understand? The policies are there. The laws are there. Implementation is not there because somebody is not monitoring. If you look at the educational sector, for example, we are still having a lot of out-of-school girls because this conflict is affecting them. So if you're investing in women and they are not girls and they are not in school because there's insecurity, you see there's a link now because it's about getting more girls to school, and then there's no what? Security for them to get to school. So we need to ensure that we budget more for these women, for girls to be in school. We need to make sure that the infrastructure, the learning materials, etc. are there for the girls to what? Get to school and learn well and stay there. In the health sector, we need to invest more to ensure that we reduce maternal mortality because it's still very high in Nigeria. You can imagine you go to give birth, it becomes a death sentence. If it's in other countries, that's an inquest. You have to inquire into it and know what's happening. But here, people walk in with their legs, climb the maternity bed, and don't get out. Sometimes it's both mother and child. So investment in the health sector to ensure that our infrastructure is working, that the personnel there are well trained to handle the issues. We also need to ensure that we train more women and female nurses because we also have some cultural barriers in some places where you have others who believe that they don't want the male doctors or male nurses to attend to their wives and co. So we need more female nurses in those kind of spaces. And that has to do with a lot of investment before you can handle some of these barriers within those kind of communities. When it comes to primary education, you know, we talked about free education, and
yes,
there's provision for that. You won't believe that we still have a lot of young children not going to school, and nobody is monitoring and following up on that to ensure that you enforce the policy to ensure that every parent gets their child to school. You still see them hawking on the streets while their mates are learning.
School.
Even when policies were introduced to ensure that there's free school feeding, we've had instances where the children go to school when the time for this feeding.
They just go to eat.
They go eat
and leave afterwards.
Back. So when you're checking to see enrollment, you see that yes, there are 100 children in school. But how many children are actively learning and staying in school? We need a lot to monitor what's happening within this space. You know, so I think part of what government should do in terms of ensuring they invest in women is that apart from putting their money, they should also ensure that the monitoring and evaluation mechanism follows strongly to ensure that whatever they put in is producing the needed results. Otherwise, it will be just us just still talking and making more policies and not looking at what is happening at the back end of these policies.
Okay, we've identified that implementing these policies will be key, you know, to solving the challenge. Aside implementing policies on the part of government, we also know that there are cultural stereotypes, like you mentioned earlier, that subjugate the women in Nigeria. Can this also be tackled? Is there any way that we can begin to orientate people, you know, to change some of the mindsets that are already there working against women?
Yeah, I think we have the National Orientation Agency.
They are there, yes.
The media is also a key partner because the National Orientation Agency will need to work with the media to do this campaign. Surprisingly, people watch and listen to all this. Either you're looking at it on the TV or the radio or the social media. These are all avenues you can reach out to people. People pay attention to these things. And that's why you can swing even elections and people's mindsets through this media. So the National Orientation Agency and the media have a lot of role to play.
There are actually lots of messages out there.
Yes, and people are reading them because people are passing them. Before you notice in your contacts, you see a lot of messages coming, and that helps. You know, it encourages people to live up to their civic responsibilities. When it comes to religious issues that discriminate and also keep holding certain categories of people down, I think that space needs a lot. We need to bring them on board in terms of discussions to ensure that they understand the value of having more women within the space. I give you an example that it's not I don't know how to put it. You know, there's this particular fellowship that happens in a particular religious sect. And this fellowship happens normally from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. The fellowship notices that only men come for fellowship. They began to worry, what's happening? Is it that women are not spiritual or they are not interested in fellowship? No. When they did a follow-up, they noticed that the timing did not sit well with women. The time they make more sales is from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. when people are closing from work and on their way home, they stop to buy things. So if you tell these women to leave their business spaces and go there,
it will not work.
They will lose businesses. So they had to come back to do a lot of adjustment in terms of the timing to accommodate and not to disrupt the economic activities of these women. So that on its own, I think, was a positive step. But not every religious institution will be able to adjust quickly to ensure that they understand that this space can also empower or disempower. And then we need to do something to ensure we bring more people together. And you know, the way we socialize people within this system also sometimes plays a very important role. If I, as a religious leader, tell women that they are important, they can add value, they are not just receivers, that's positive. But if you say, no, all of you need to be dependent, you need to just receive, and you need to just stay in one place, then you see, you move the pressure from one sector and concentrate it on one and allow others to be redundant. And that's not very good for the society. So we need a lot of reorientation, also sensitization for religious institutions. They have a lot to play. Our traditional institutions who harbor the norms and culture of our society, they need a lot of orientation too. You know, we have very positive values when we were growing up. You know, society was self-cleansing then. When you do wrong, you're chastised for it. As a matter of fact, if you were corrupt, they might even sing songs for you and your name echoes. Okay. And when people grow, they know that when you associate with such people, you're associating with badness and corruption. But over time, this culture begins to what? Change. And people don't even value certain things. So we need to revisit our positive socialization process, where we value hard work, we value inclusivity. I've asked somebody a question. I said, I don't know. I'm looking for literature on communities where women were redundant in the past. And I mean it in honesty. Okay. That women were prevented from doing any form of business, no farming activities, no nothing. They were asked to sit and eat and enjoy. Those statistics are difficult to find.
To get, yes.
It shows that productivity has been part of our
Women have
history.
always been active parts of the society.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think with the introduction of white-collar job,
yes,
and the competition that comes within this space, people want to outsmart the other, and so it
limits the opportunities of women.
And these issues of, oh no, you stay at home, I work, begins to come in.
Yes.
But when it was a farming community, business and trading community, women were encouraged to invest and be part of
Time has been fast spent. Thank you very much, Dr. Plangsat Dayel, for your wonderful insights on the program. And this is where we draw the curtain on this episode of Late Edition on NTA News 24. And I've been speaking with Dr. Plangsat Dayel, Director, Center for Gender and Women's Studies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you for watching. Join us next time on the program. I am Ekene Ngwe.